Will you marry me, Emma Rose Carter? I was kneeling in the center of a packed bar, holding a ring pop blue raspberry. In fact, many began clapping. A whistle was blown. Say yes, the bartender said, as if this were a Friday night Netflix special rather than the most ridiculous joke I had ever made. Emma's dark eyes were wide as she looked down at me, her palm over her lips. The 2 margaritas we had consumed had already caused her cheeks to flush, but now her entire face was red. I briefly feared that she would laugh and push me, like she always does. Rather, she let go of her hand, met my eyes directly, and said, emphatically, I thought you'd never ask me. The bar blew up. Every single person at downtown Austin's O'Malley's declared us to be their new favorite pair, I promise. She said yes, shouted someone, clinking glasses. The man at the pool table pounded his cue as if it were a drum on the floor. I had a full mental block. I got up too quickly and almost ran into a server who was walking by. What? Still holding the dumb ring pop like a fool, I blurted. Emma placed the plastic ring onto her finger and took the candy from me. Not at all. It matched her about as well as my joke proposal did at the time. She raised her palm to catch the cheap, gleaming blue diamond in the light. Ryan, you heard me, she said. I assumed you wouldn't inquire. Although she spoke calmly, I noticed something new in her eyes. Or perhaps I had simply chosen not to see it. My heart struck my ribs hard. Hey, I was joking, she concluded quietly. A low roar replaced the bar's noise. For a moment, the only things between us were the neon signs and the ring pop. Yeah, I replied, suddenly conscious of my own volume. Yes, I mean it. It was a joke. Like what we say all the time. Recall? I chuckled, but my voice was thin. We'll simply get married and call it quits if we're both unmarried at 30. Emma's smile wavered for a brief moment. Then she put on the cheerful, carefree smile that had saved us from 100 unpleasant moments. Calm down, Ree, she said. I understand. She gave me a shoulder flick. Take a seat. You're preventing others from viewing the game. With my legs becoming heavier than they should have been, I gently sank back onto my stool. I was unable to concentrate on the score of the basketball game that was broadcast on the TV over the bar. I could only make out the ring pop she was holding and the tone of her voice when she had uttered those things. I assumed you wouldn't ask me. As if nothing earth-shattering had just transpired between us, she sipped her drink. She remarked, It's unbelievable that you did that in reality. In the open, you posed such a threat. It was you who dared me, I reflexively retorted. We had been observing an argument between a couple at the opposite end of the pub 10 minutes prior. The guy merely stood there and stared at the entrance while the female bounded out. Emma had given a headshake. She had said, Do better than that if you ever ask someone to marry you. Aim high, knees that are full. Ryan, don't squander this opportunity. I had said, Please. I will propose to you if I ever do. In this bar. Using a ring pop extremely elegant. I bet you won't, she had smiled in response. You talk a lot. I detested being referred to as all talk. So here we were. I glanced across at her. Since my first year at the University of Texas, Emma had been my best friend. She had borrowed my pen and never returned it, which is how we had met in an introductory psychology class. She had witnessed my finest, worst, and I just ate cold pizza for breakfast, and I'm fine moments during the previous 8 years. She had been there to hold my hand throughout my dad's heart attack. Her car broke down at midnight as I was driving across town. The first person I texted about everything was her. A new job? Emma. A bad date? Emma. Strange meme? Emma. Additionally, she had always been untouchable. Not allowed. She had been in relationships. I'd dated before. After saying, You can do better, and rolling our eyes at each other's decisions, we resumed being each other's constants. I would never allow myself to think of her in any other way. That's what I told myself, anyway. The air between us was electrified in a way I couldn't explain. She was sitting across from me now, wearing a torn pair of jeans and a tattered UT sweatshirt. Her hair was in a loose bun, and a tiny blue engagement ring was sparkling on her finger. Are you okay? She inquired abruptly. What? Yes, absolutely. I reached for my beer and drank too much of it. Why wouldn't I be all right? She remarked, You're doing the thing. What is it? She raised an eyebrow. The twitching of your left eye when you're trying to look calm, but are actually in a panic. I objected, It doesn't twitch. It definitely does, she remarked. I've witnessed it during bad dates, job interviews, and the moment you realized you texted the wrong Kayla. I let out a groan. We decided not to bring up that topic ever again. For a moment, everything seemed normal as she laughed. As if we were simply two best friends, Ryan and Emma, laughing at the world and each other in a bar on a Friday night. Then a couple leaned over at the bar. You too, congratulations, the woman remarked, beaming broadly. That was really lovely. Emma's eyes gleamed oddly as she gazed at me. I am grateful, she remarked. It took a while to happen. My beer choked me. I leaned forward as they turned away. I said, you didn't have to say that. She looked at her bottle's label and shrugged. She remarked, it made her happy. What's the damage? My pulse was pounding as if I had just climbed 10 flights of stairs, and I began to think for the first time what it would be like if this were genuine. After paying the bill, we ventured out into the refreshing Austin night. 6th Street was crowded with visitors and college students, bright and noisy. On the corner, a street entertainer with a guitar played a depressing country tune about losing the girl. Emma stuffed her hands into her sweatshirt's front pocket. She said, "Want to take a little walk?" "Yes," I replied, settling into a step next to her. The city buzzed around us as we made our way down the sidewalk toward the parking garage. Every few of steps, her shoulder touched mine. I was terribly conscious of her hand's ring pop. I tried to seem nonchalant as I said, "So, I thought you'd never ask me," you said. She grinned without giving me a look. "It seems like you're really stuck on that." I said, "It's kind of hard not to be." "I thought you meant it." She halted her stride. After 2 more paces, I realized and retraced my steps. Her face was outlined in a bright glow as she stood beneath a streetlight. With her eyes on the floor, she wrapped the plastic ring on her finger. "How about if I did?" she said softly. The sounds of 6th Street faded to a buzz for a moment. Automobiles went by. People chuckled. Someone yelled, "Woo," without explanation. But those 4 words and my heartbeat were all I could hear. "What if I did?" "Em, what are you saying?" My voice was quiet as I asked. When she looked up at me, her eyes had lost their humor. "Don't play around." Something frightful, visceral, and real. "I'm stating." She took a swallow. "Perhaps it hasn't been a joke for me," I'm saying. "Not for quite some time." My mouth became parched. "We're best friends," I replied haltingly. "I understand," she said, "and I'd rather not lose that. However, in between all of the late-night tacos, helping you move apartments, and you unexpectedly visiting my mom in the hospital without my permission, I began to wonder what our, if we're still single at 30, plan would be like if it weren't just a bit." Her smile was slight and unsteady. I began to question whether it was foolish of me to wait for a punchline that never materialized. I gazed at her, at the girl who had served as my constant, my safety net, and my contingency plan. For years, I had embraced, laughed, and griped with the same female. I would never allow myself to regard her as anything more. Or perhaps I had. Perhaps I had simply buried it so deeply that I could act as though I hadn't. She hurried on, saying, "I don't want to make things weird. I'll trust you if you tell me you don't feel that way. We'll move on after I swallow this. I am able to act. I'm skilled at acting." It sounded tight as she laughed. "However, you inquired." So I replied. I said, dreading how insignificant it sounded. I asked as a joke. She said, and I answered like it was real. I am responsible for that. 2 people who had shared everything except for this enormous object that now rested between us like a third person were standing there in the center of crowded Austin. She murmured, "Ryan, say something. Please." I started to speak, but my words became jumbled. The reality is that the moment I witnessed her acting as though she had accepted the absurd ring pop, something inside of me changed. Something that made my chest ache and my stomach turn over in a way that friendship couldn't describe. I simply wasn't sure if I had the courage to acknowledge it. I'm not sure if I have the courage to respond to that at this time. My words finally came out like that. "Not me too. Not no way. That's all." For the first time since I'd known her, Emma appeared to be disappointed with me as she stood there in the streetlight, twirling the ring pop around her finger. "All right," she said softly. "At least it's honest." "We have been consuming alcohol," I murmured, searching for any available justification. "It's noisy. 6th Street is where we are." Choosing what to make of 8 years of friendship seems to be at the worst possible moment. She exhaled, a sigh that was half sigh and half giggle. You believe that tequila is the only reason I feel this way? She questioned. No, I blurted out. That wasn't what I meant. Ryan, what did you mean? She inquired. Because, as far as I can tell, you just made a joke about something that, to me, has long since ceased to be a joke. That one was painful. Since she was correct, I had said it casually, flippant. When I didn't have to consider how marriage would appear on her finger, it was simple to turn it into a joke. I blurted, I'm afraid. I had no intention of saying it. It simply slipped out. The slightest softening occurred in her eyes. Of what? I responded. Of losing you. Of saying the wrong thing and ruining the one relationship that works in my life. You are my best buddy. You are who you are. I will lose you if I agree to what you're actually asking, and it crashes. I risk losing you in another way if I say no too quickly and turn out to be mistaken. I gave a headshake. I'm not sure which fear is more intense. Her mouth was clenched as if she were chewing on words as she gazed at me. Are you attracted to me? She said directly. What a straightforward question. Either yes or no. My mind, however, responded with a jumble of fragmented memories. Her head resting on my shoulder following my dad's surgery, her dozing off on my couch while watching a movie, and the way my chest always relaxed when I saw her name on my phone. I said cautiously, I'm not sure what to call what I feel. You have my undying love. You have been my love for years. The alternative felt like playing with fire in a gasoline-built house, so I've always filed it under best friend and left it there. The one time she laughed, it was without delight. She remarked, so you built the house. Then, as a joke, lit a match. Emma, she raised a hand and replied, I understand. You're not prepared. That's acceptable. I simply couldn't seem as though I didn't care that you asked. Not this evening. Our effortless rhythm vanished for the first time as we stood there in the yellow light, the world revolving around us. Each syllable was heavy. Every pause feels more weighty. Can we discuss this tomorrow? I inquired. When bad country music and inebriated people aren't all around us. She gave me a long look before slowly nodding. Yes, she replied. Tomorrow. Without making contact, we made our way to the parking garage. We would frequently stumble into each other, steal fries from each other's leftovers, and quarrel over which band was overrated. We took care not to bump into each other at all that evening. She paused when she unlocked the door of her automobile. With a quieter voice, she said, Text me when you get home. Please. I said, I always do. She smiled half-heartedly at me. She tried to make it a joke once more as she added, Good night, almost fiancé. It didn't land perfectly. I said, Good night, almost bride, and it sounded much worse. Rolling her eyes, she climbed in and drove off. I didn't get much sleep. I laid in bed and stared at the ceiling, mentally reliving the night like a bad movie on repeat. The bar, the knee, the ring pop. When she said, I thought you'd never ask me, her tone had changed. Our history flashed across my mind. She fell asleep on my dorm floor during a study session during my freshman year, drooling on my philosophy notes. She arrived at my apartment in sweatpants, her eyes swollen, and said, Tell me what's wrong with me. The night her first serious boyfriend broke up with her when she was a junior. Nothing, I had said. He meant every word when he said, he was an idiot. We were watching a Texas thunderstorm blow in on my small balcony the summer following graduation. We'll just marry each other if we're both still single at 30, she had stated. I clinked my beer bottle against hers and laughed, but I didn't notice how my chest clenched. How many times had I avoided the emotion rather than confronting it head-on? My alarm must have gone off at some point, since I woke up feeling as though a truck full of emotions had struck me. My phone was waiting for a text. Emma, coffee? Is it neutral territory? Ring pops are not permitted. Before responding, I looked at it for a whole minute. Me, 10 o'clock at Joe's? Emma, I'll see you there. Be on time, almost fiancé. The moniker both hurt and comforted me. We went to Joe's Coffee on South Congress. A chalkboard menu, small round tables, and laptop users feigning to be at work. The aroma of burnt toast and espresso. When I entered, she was already seated by the window with her hands clasped around a mug. She had exchanged the sweater for pants and a basic black t-shirt. No cosmetics. Her shoulders were covered in hair. The ring pop had vanished. My chest simultaneously sunk and rose. I sat into the chair across from her and said, Hey, she repeated. We sipped our coffee in silence for a minute. I began, about last night. At the same moment, she said, yeah. We both paused and then burst out laughing, releasing some of the stress. First you, I said. She inhaled. She started, I won't act like I didn't mean what I said. It would be simple, but it would be deceptive as well. You are more than simply my buddy who kills spiders and knows my Starbucks order. I do have feelings for you. The spider analogy made me feel pleased in a little, foolish way. But I also meant it when I said I don't want to lose you, she said. Ryan, you're home. For a long time, you have been. I don't want to push you for an answer right now if doing so puts me at risk. With a constricted throat, I nodded. I apologized for making it into a joke. I halted, then corrected myself, saying, I didn't realize. No, that isn't accurate. Part of me, I believe, did realize. I kept it a joke for that reason. Her gaze locked with mine. Because everything changes once it's real, she explained. Yes, I said. I also detest change. She remarked, after college, you moved states. I said, yeah, but I brought you along. It was less scary because of that. She twitched her mouth. I said, it's my turn to ask you a direct question. Do you really think we could return to normal if we tried to be more than just friends and it didn't work out? She traced a circle in a coffee ring with her finger as she glanced down at the table. No, she replied. I don't, and I'm afraid of that. Same, I said. For a minute, we sat with that. So what should we do? Finally, I asked. She let out a sigh. One hangover coffee doesn't have to determine our entire future, she stated. Perhaps we might temporarily insert a pin into the heavier substance. Give everything time to breathe. No more phony bar proposals. There won't be any more significant queries at midnight on 6th Street. Agreed, I replied. We could, I'm not sure. Consider this a test field. She arched an eyebrow. Now what? I said, you know. Listen, take note of things. Now that this thing is in the open, observe what genuinely changes. Does it feel different to be around you? Do I want to hold your hand more than I did before we went to the movie theater? Are you still interested in telling me about the men you chat with on apps? Do I still wish to murder them all at first sight? That made her smile. You already give the impression that you want to murder them right away. Exactly, I replied. There was a slight softening of her smile. She answered, I can live with that. Observational stage. There is no pressure, no labels. I went on to say, and no pretending last night didn't happen. We don't pretend we didn't say what we said and stuff it into a dark closet. Agree, she said. At the same moment, we both reached across the table to shake it. We touched. Rather than retreating, we both became motionless. She had a warm hand. Tiny. A new kind of familiarity. With a little accent, she said, science experiment. Only data-based. Yes, I said. Very clinical. The ghost of her touch lingered with me even after we parted ways. It felt almost normal for a few days. We shared memes with one another, taking care to sit an inch away from one another and acting as though it meant something. We watched a television together on my couch. After matching with her on an app, she told me about a man named Brandon who said, so what do you bring to the table? He sounded like a job interview for a post that no one wanted, I informed her. I observed myself beneath it all. My chest constricted each time she laughed. My day became better every time I saw her name on my phone. She was constantly there, sitting across from me, feet on my coffee table, griping about my taste in music whenever I imagined some fictitious future version of myself. That was nothing new. The only thing that changed was my self-admitted realization that perhaps it meant more than we're just close friends. My mother then called. Her name appeared on my screen as I was leaving work and making my way to my car in the parking lot. Hi, Mom, I said. She said, hey, honey. I wanted to remind you that next weekend is your brother's engagement celebration. Are you still planning to come? Yes, I said. I promise to be there. Well, she said, having both of my guys together will be convenient. Perhaps some thoughts will come to you. I let out a groan. Please don't begin. What? Is it impossible for a mother to want for grandchildren? She asked. Ryan, you're almost 30. I was your age once. I concluded for her. You had a mortgage, 2 children, and a bad perm. She chuckled. Exactly. Time is running out. I said, Mom, I'm not going to order a bride from Amazon. I'm all right. Are you aware of the person I've always liked? My stomach fell when she said that since I already knew what was about to happen. Emma. That girl is unique. Already, the two of you feel like family. I gave myself a forehead rub. We're pals, I declared. Best friends. That's how some of the best marriages begin, she remarked. I'm merely stating. Consider it. I hurriedly said, I really have to go. Traffic. She groaned. All right, all right. Dress nicely. And if you'd like, bring someone. Like you did at your cousin's wedding. I don't want you to stand by yourself in the corner. I adore you. I murmured, love you too, and hung up. For a minute, I sat in my car and gazed at the steering wheel. Emma's sentiments were repeated by my mother. What I had been avoiding saying. Emma and I got married. Not in jest. As an actuality. Once more my phone buzzed. Emma, are you able to speak? I made a foolish move. I felt sick to my stomach. Me, what took place? Are you all right? Emma, yes, physically I mean. Uncertain on an emotional level. Would you be able to visit? My pulse was already quickening as I turned on the ignition and drove out of the lot. I knocked on the door of her flat 10 minutes later. On the second knock, wearing shorts and an oversized t-shirt, bare feet, and hair in a sloppy bun, she answered it. Her I did something dumb outfit. What took place? I inquired. She bit her bottom lip as she moved aside to let me in. All right, she said, shutting the door. Recall how we stated that we were not taking any significant action and were only in the observational phase. Yes, I answered slowly. She remarked, I kind of made a big move. My pulse rate doubled. Emma, what did you do? Her eyes widened as she inhaled deeply. I informed my mother that we were engaged. The words came to me simultaneously like an embrace and a smack. You what? I questioned. Emma flinched. All right. To defend myself, she ambushed me. I answered slowly. There isn't a version of that sentence where the defense is strong. She strolled by me, collapsed on the couch, and made a face. Still attempting to control my heartbeat, I followed. I said, start at the beginning. Make use of simple language. I'm brittle. She pulled a cushion into her lap and replied, all right. My mother called. She wanted to know if I would be attending your brother's engagement celebration. I blinked. Why is your mother aware of my brother's engagement celebration? Emma looked at me. Because she received a text from your mom. Sometimes they talk more than we do. It is frightful. I couldn't even disagree because that sounded just like my mother. In any case, Emma said, she began the standard, when are you going to settle down? Speech. The greatest hits, you know. Your eggs don't wait forever. I just want to see you happy. And Emma rose, you're not getting any younger. She gave her temple a rub. She inquired as to whether I was inviting anyone to the celebration. No, I replied. All right, I replied. That seems typical. Emma remarked. She wouldn't let it go. She mimicked her mother by raising the pitch of her voice. How about that pleasant Ryan? He is constantly present. He adores you. Everyone can see that. The impression was dropped by her. She simply persisted in pushing. If you don't stop hiding behind that boy, you're going to end up alone, she added. Something in my chest twisted sharply. Hiding behind me? I said it again. Yes, Emma replied. As if you were a human shield protecting me from my own emotions. I parted my lips, then shut them again. Not totally incorrect. She said, so I panicked. What is he to you, Emma? She said. Really? I simply blurted it out. He is my fiancé. I gazed at her. You simply jumped all the way to your fiancé? No, we're experimenting. We're seeing where it goes. Not at all. Did you choose the last boss level? She said, it just came out. I'm not sure. Compared to attempting to explain our peculiar Schrodinger's relationship, it felt simpler. What was it she said? Already afraid of the response, I inquired. Emma picked at a loose thread while glancing down at the cushion. She said, she began to cry. Happy sobbing. She claimed to be aware of it. Claimed that since her sophomore year of college, she had been praying for this. She then began discussing dates, clothes, and how she would inform Aunt Linda, and she stopped talking and gave me a big-eyed stare. She blurted out, I tried to walk it back. It's new, I informed her, that it's going to be quiet. However, the news had spread. Can you tell my dad tonight? She said. I answered yes in a panic once more. She grimaced. She went on to say that she is excited to see us at the celebration as an engaged couple. My brain completely reset itself. So, I said carefully, for your mom, we are now feigned engaged. At the actual engagement celebration for my brother. Emma nodded. her face plastered with remorse. Basically, I reclined in my chair and gazed up at the ceiling. It made me want to laugh for a moment. Then I felt like screaming. I then wanted to give her a kiss. I felt like I was in a full-on cage fight. I apologize, she muttered. I am aware that this is crazy. I can give her a call back and explain that there was a misunderstanding if you would like. I gave her a look. The only things Emma was afraid of were deep water and disappointing her parents. I learned more from the fact that she had grasped her fiancé like a lifeline than from any deliberate speech. What would you like to do? I inquired. She blinked. What? You listened to me, I said. You could have claimed you were seeing a guy from work or an app if it was just pressure. I was chosen by you. You chose us, despite the mess. So take a moment to forget about your mother. What are you looking for? Her eyes gleamed once more as she exhaled shakily. She said, I don't want to lie. Not at all. However, it didn't feel entirely false when I said it. That is what frightens me. I took a swallow. Yes, I said. Me too. The sound of her air conditioner filled the quiet as we sat in that tiny apartment in Austin, both of us gazing at an unplanned future and a present that had just become more complicated. All right, I said at last. The first option is to call your mother again. Tell her you're scared, and she kills us both as soon as possible. Emma let out a groan. She will actually arrive with a priest and holy water. Option 2, I added, is to let it go for the celebration. Whatever we are, we go as. We clasp hands, smile for photos, and experience the sensation. After that, we determine what is and is not real. That's a bad idea, she remarked. Yes, I concurred. It is. She nibbled on her lip. What makes me want to pick it in the first place? Because, I thought, there's a part of you that wants this to be real. Because I do, too, in some way. I said aloud. We need rules if we do this. She straightened her posture and nodded. Ground rules. All right. Strike me. With a finger up, I said, Rule 1. We don't use this as a pretext to steer clear of the actual discussion. We still owe each other the truth when the time is right, whether we have a fake fiancé or not. All right, she said. The second rule is that we don't make fun of one another. No strange anecdotes in front of relatives. No surprise. It's all a joke during a toast. You really think I'd do that? I inquired. She looked at me. You used a ring pop to pop the question to me in a bar. Touché, I said. More subtly, she added, Rule 3. We defend one another. We've got each other covered if things get strange. The aunt keeps asking about babies every 5 minutes, so don't leave the other one alone. I said solemnly. I will throw myself in front of Aunt Linda for you. She smiled, but it was a smile of fear. The fourth rule, she stated. We cut the connection if this becomes too painful for either of us at any time. Not guilty. No. But we told everyone already. We simply stop. My chest constricted. Agree, I said. We took a seat back and allowed the truth of what we had just decided to sink in. You understand what this means, don't you? After a moment, I said. She questioned, that I owe you an apology cake? I said, we are going to show up as Ryan and Emma, engaged, at my brother's engagement party. Since college, my entire family has been quietly supporting that. She moaned and put the pillow over her face. She spoke in a muffled voice. Your mother is about to blow up. I said, your mom is going to start looking up venues on Google. She let go of the pillow and gave me a wide-eyed stare. What if this isn't right? She muttered. What happens if we go there and act like we're engaged and I realize how much I want it, and you don't? I was struck hard by the candor in her voice. I inhaled. What happens if we go there and act like we're engaged and I realize how much I want it, and you don't? I retorted. She stopped. We both kept our eyes on it. That's the issue, she stated. Neither of us knows if we are standing on a bridge or a cliff, but we are both on the edge of something. There's only one way to know, I stated. She looked at me as though she was looking for some clue, some indication, anything that would lessen the horror of this. Are you certain that you want to do this? She repeated her question. No, I said plainly. I have no idea at all. However, I am aware that I don't want to go back and wonder for the next 10 years what might have happened if we had made one move in the right direction. She let out a slow exhale, as if she were releasing air she had been holding since the previous evening. All right, she said. Then we leave. We clasp hands. We try our best to fake it. She stopped and swallowed. And perhaps, we check to see if it seems phony. My heart was pounding in my throat. Emma, I said. Yes, she muttered. If we get through this party, I said, no more observational phase. Never again, eventually. We converse. Really talk. About what we want. From each other. From this. She nodded, eyes glossy. Agree, she said. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She glanced at it and winced. Speak of the devil, she muttered. My mom. She wants a picture of the ring. I felt sick to my stomach. We don't have a ring. She looked at me slowly. We have one, she said. But it's made of sugar and bad choices. We stared at each other, the image of that blue ring pop hanging between us like some ridiculous prophecy. We're not sending your mom a picture of a ring pop, I said. Obviously not, she replied. We're going to the mall tomorrow. For a fake engagement ring? I inquired. For a fake engagement ring that might not be fake forever, she said quietly. She typed back a quick message to her mom, fingers trembling. Party's in 5 days, she said, locking her phone. We have 5 days to figure out how to pretend to be in love in front of everyone who knows us best. I looked at her, at the girl who had been the center of my life for 8 years without me admitting it. I said. Yeah, she asked. We might not have to pretend as hard as you think.
If you felt good in the story, stay with us. Like, subscribe, and join me in the next one.